In our headlines on this Thursday afternoon, September 12th here in South Korea. Multiple short-range ballistic missiles were fired from North Korea this morning, making them the first missiles launched by the regime in over 2 months. Addressing concerns over disruption to the healthcare system during the Chuseok holidays, the government plans to operate an emergency medical system for 2 weeks. More hospitals and clinics will be open, and doctors will see their pay increase temporarily during the holidays. The U.S. top diplomat has hinted that Washington will consider lifting missile restrictions for Ukraine. This comes as Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has been seeking permission to target Russia with Western missiles, repeatedly asking for additional help from Western allies. Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Peunji. North Korea resumed firing ballistic missiles this morning for the first time in over 2 months. This comes less than 24 hours after another round of trash-carrying balloons were sent across the border. Our An Sung-jin starts us off.
North Korea on Thursday morning fired multiple short-range ballistic missiles toward the East Sea. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff said they are analyzing the types and range of the missiles launched for the Pyongyang area. It added that the missiles flew approximately 360 kilometers before landing in the East Sea. The last time the North fired ballistic missiles was on July 1st, which Pyongyang said were successful test launches of a new type of tactical ballistic missile. The Joint Chiefs of Staff emphasized that North Korea's missile launch is a clear provocative act that seriously threatens the peace and stability of the Korean peninsula, and said they remain on high alert for potential additional launches. South Korea's foreign ministry said the U.S. and Japan will also continue to closely monitor the possibility of additional launches and respond firmly to North Korea's threats to a strong South Korea-U.S. alliance and trilateral security cooperation. An official at the Unification Ministry also said the launch violates UN Security Council resolutions and stated that at a time of urgent recovery from the flood damage, the provocations demonstrate the falsehood of the regime's propaganda. North Korea's launch of ballistic missiles follows the sending of more trash-carrying balloons toward the south on Wednesday evening. However, most of those balloons were carried by the wind back north of the military demarcation line. An official at the Defense Ministry noted that it's too early to tell if the launch of trash-carrying balloons and short-range ballistic missiles at the same time implies a complex provocation by the North, due to the small number of balloons.
The short-range ballistic missile provocation may have been a backlash against our recent joint exercises or could be a test for export to Russia. The trash balloons were forcibly sent yesterday, even though the wind direction was not favorable.
However, speculation is rising that it could hint at a return to provocations against the South after balloons were last sent for 5 consecutive days from September 4th until the 8th. Watchers also say the North may increase provocations ahead of the U.S. presidential elections in November. An Sung-jin, Arirang News.
Ahead of Chuseok, to tame public concerns over possible medical disruption due to the prolonged medical dispute, Prime Minister Han Duck-soo reassured the South Korean public that an emergency medical system will be up and running. 8,000 hospitals and local clinics will be open during the holiday. That's double the amount that we saw during the Lunar New Year holiday. Our Chuseok has more.
Prime Minister Han Duck-soo held a briefing this morning, stating the plans for the emergency medical system during the Chuseok holidays. The government will operate a special emergency response system for about 2 weeks, from September 11th until September 25th, including the Chuseok holiday period. The relevant authorities will mobilize all available resources to maintain the emergency medical system. During the Chuseok holiday season, around 8,000 hospitals and clinics nationwide will open each day. Also, over 150 hospitals for pregnancy and childbirth across the country will stay open throughout the holidays. To ensure proper care for critical patients, the government plans to increase service fees for specialists to 3.5 times the regular rate to reward them for working during Chuseok. They will also increase the number of medical staff like military doctors and support nurses. The government will deploy supervisors to 409 emergency rooms nationwide to monitor the situation daily. Furthermore, Prime Minister Han asked people with minor health issues to first visit local clinics rather than major hospitals. People can easily search for open medical facilities in the maps on major online platforms, or they can call 119 or 129 to quickly find available hospitals. The PM also thanked the public for supporting medical reforms.
All reforms are difficult, but healthcare reform is especially painful. For almost every job in the world, someone else can step in during emergencies, but no one can replace doctors in saving lives.
He added that it's been over 20 years since the medical school enrollment quota was frozen, resulting in a shortage of doctors compared to other countries. Moreover, he urged the medical community to join the proposed joint consultative body as soon as possible to address the current situation. Chuseok, Arirang News.
Over in the U.S., the country's consumer price index slowed to its lowest level in 3.5 years in August, further boosting chances of a benchmark rate cut later this month. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics on Wednesday, CPI rose 2.5% year-on-year last month, slightly lower than the market expectation of 2.6%. U.S. inflation also fell 0.4 percentage points from a month earlier. Excluding volatile energy and food prices, the core CPI rose 3.2% on year, up 0.3 percentage points from a month earlier. With less than 2 months left until the election day in the U.S., flash polls immediately following the presidential debate on Tuesday suggest that more people think Kamala Harris performed better. While insisting he won the debate, Donald Trump has shown little interest in doing a second one. Our Lee reports.
Following Tuesday's U.S. presidential debate between Democratic Vice President Kamala Harris and former President and Republican candidate Donald Trump, polls across the U.S. show that more Americans think Harris won the debate. CNN's flash poll results show that 63% of registered voters think Harris outperformed Trump. This is echoed by analysis from the American news outlet The Hill, which found that 49.4% of Americans support Harris, while 45.8% support Trump. After the debate, pop music artist Taylor Swift announced her endorsement of Harris, saying Harris fights for the rights and causes that Swift believes need a warrior to champion them. However, Trump asserted that he won and that he is looking at having other debates, but without set plans.
You know, when you win, you don't really necessarily have to do it a second time, so we'll see. But I thought we had a great debate last night.
Tuesday's debate on ABC attracted 57.5 million television viewers across 7 TV networks, according to preliminary Nielsen data on Wednesday. This tops the June debate between Trump and then-candidate President Joe Biden. On the day after the debate, the two candidates both attended a September 11 memorial event and exchanged a handshake. 7 weeks remain until voting day. It's expected the candidates will focus on some 7 swing states in the country, including Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Harris will likely focus on issues such as women's rights to abortion, as well as working with President Biden to release hostages in the Israel-Hamas war, while Trump will likely focus on blaming Harris for the lack of border control and economic issues, including inflation, under the Biden administration. Lee, Arirang News.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky has said his country's victory plan relies largely on support from Ukraine's allies, calling on restrictions on long-range missiles to be lifted. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken has given his strongest hint yet that the White House is about to lift the measures. Our Lee explains more.
U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and UK Foreign Secretary David Lammy held talks with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky in Kyiv on Wednesday. As Ukraine looks to change the tide of the war further, Zelensky has called for additional support from his allies, including a lifting of restrictions on the use of long-range missiles. In response, Blinken said he'll discuss the matter with U.S. President Joe Biden.
I'm going to take that discussion back to Washington to brief the president on what I heard. I know that David's doing the same. And both of our bosses, no doubt, will discuss this when they meet later this week, actually. From day one, as you've heard me say, We have adjusted and adapted as needs have changed, as the battlefield has changed, and I have no doubt that we'll continue to do that as this evolves.
Ukraine has been pushing for the lifting of missile restrictions so that it can target deeper inside Russia. The U.S. has also pledged an additional $700 million in aid for Ukraine, while the U.K. has pledged $782 million. According to the Ukrainian leader, Kyiv's victory over Moscow depends on the support of its allies, including Washington. He also said that he plans to share Ukraine's so-called victory plan with President Biden, adding that it's important for Ukraine to announce the plan to its allies before the second Ukrainian peace conference, which is scheduled to be held in November. Meanwhile, the EU's Energy Commissioner, Kadri Simpson, said the bloc will continue to phase out of its reliance on Russian gas, amid reports that show Europe still relies on Russia for almost a fifth of its gas imports. Speaking to reporters in Brussels, Simpson said that the EU remains fully committed to completing the phase-out of Russian gas, which can be done without challenging Europe's energy security of supply. When asked if the EU's Energy Commission was planning to impose sanctions on Russian natural gas imports, the commissioner said that Moscow has already lost any leverage it had over the bloc. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
Over in Africa, at least 30 people died and some 414,000 people were first forced from their homes after a dam collapsed in northeastern Nigeria. According to Nigeria's National Emergency Management Agency, the Alau Dam on the Ngata River in the state of Borno ruptured, with floodwater covering 40% of the city of Maiduguri. The worst flooding in 30 years swept away thousands of homes and left residents with nowhere to go. The governor of Borno State said Wednesday that authorities were scrambling to rescue residents and place them in temporary shelters. Floods also destroyed a state zoo, killing 80% of its animals and washing live crocodiles and snakes into flooded communities. When it comes to travel, South Korea, China, and Japan are often popular destinations for each other. With this in mind, tourism ministers from these three countries met in Japan for the first time in 5 years. Our culture correspondent Song Yoo-jin has the details.
40 million. That's the new annual target for trilateral people-to-people exchanges set by South Korea, China, and Japan by 2030, an increase of 10 million from the current levels. This goal was set at the 10th South Korea-China-Japan Tourism Ministers meeting held in Kobe, Japan on Wednesday, the first meeting of its kind since 2019. Attended by South Korea's Minister of Culture, Sports and Tourism Yoo In-chon, China's Vice Minister of Culture and Tourism Jang Jung, and Japan's Minister of Land, Infrastructure, Transport and Tourism Saito Tetsuo, the focus this year was on three areas: engaging the younger generations, boosting regional tourism, and improving travel convenience.
The younger generations represent the future of all three countries. We discussed how governments should step up efforts to encourage more school trips between our nations.
They also shared ideas on promoting tourism in lesser-known regions of each country, especially as all three face shrinking populations and significant regional imbalances, while popular destinations struggle with over-tourism.
We agreed on the importance of revitalizing regional airports and expanding bus routes and other forms of public transport. The idea is to develop policies that bring more tourists in to visit regions beyond major cities like Seoul, Busan, and Jeju.
We'll share effective strategies with each other, like the policy package our government introduced last October to address over-tourism. We agreed on the importance of dispersing visitors from overcrowded tourist spots and ensuring a more balanced spread of tourists across the country.
However, increasing tourism isn't just about attraction. It's also about convenience. The three countries touched on ways to improve the entry and departure processes, such as the pre-entry immigration screening system Seoul and Tokyo are considering. The meeting concluded with the signing of a joint declaration that included these commitments, with the three sides promising to meet in China next year. So with the tourism ministers meeting concluding on Wednesday, next up is the South Korea-China-Japan culture ministers meeting, scheduled to take place in Kyoto on Thursday.
송유진, 아리랑 뉴스 고베.
Tae Yong-ho, the first North Korean defector to be elected as a politician in South Korea, is now the Secretary-General of the Peaceful Unification Advisory Council. This constitutional body advises the president on unification policy. Our Kim Jung-sil met with him.
Tae Yong-ho's career has taken a route few could imagine. Formerly North Korea's deputy ambassador to the UK, he defected to South Korea in 2016 and made headlines in 2020 as the first defector elected as a lawmaker, winning a National Assembly seat in Gangnam-gu district. In July, he became the first North Korean defector to be named Secretary-General of the Peaceful Unification Advisory Council, which advises the president on unification policy.
The appointment as a Secretary-General of Peaceful Unification Advisory Council would give a very important message to North Korea that if Korea is reunified with freedom and democratic system, the future reunified Korea would not discriminate any person because of the background.
How has the mission of the council changed with the current geopolitical climate, with the North being very tough on us and refusing to talk to us?
First of all, I think my mission is to deliver to North Korean side that South Korean government as well as South Korean population do not wish or want any war or conflict with North Korea. And the second thing is denuclearization of North Korea. Now, North Korea's nuclear and missile capability is ever increasing. That's why the security, the framework on Korean Peninsula is getting more and more dangerous. The most effective and pragmatic way to stop the nuclear war on Korean Peninsula is to strengthen the ROK-US military alliance, together with the help of Japan.
This week, around 740 council members stationed in the Americas visited Seoul for the first time since their appointment a year ago. As civil diplomats, they promote unification policy to the international community. What is the value of the council's work without reciprocation from the North, though?
Oh, yes, a very good question. So far, North and South has had a common point. The common point was reunification. South Korean government, together with the United States and the world community, tried very hard to bring a permanent peace by dialoguing with North Korean regime as a partner, but all approaches failed. So Yoon Suk-yeol government's new paradigm is that the dialogue is still open to North Korean regime, but the Yoon Suk-yeol government want to change, you see, the North Korean people's feelings, aspiration, and dream for reunification, and we want to encourage and inspire this dream.
Secretary-General Tae said freedom both brought challenges and opportunities. His own journey hopes to serve as a powerful call for those still in the North to envision a different future. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Let's take a look at the latest news in the world now. Vietnam continues to battle the aftermath of Typhoon Yagi, which battered the north of the country and killed at least 179 people and left 145 missing since making landfall on Saturday. According to local media, an entire village in northern Vietnam was swept away by flash floods, which killed 16 on Wednesday. The day before, 30 people died after mud and debris buried 35 families in another village. Thousands of people living near the swollen Red River in the capital Hanoi were evacuated on Wednesday as water levels rose to a 20-year high. Some schools in the city have told students to stay home for the rest of the week, while power has been cut to some districts due to safety concerns. Vietnamese state media said that 10 out of 30 administrative districts are under flood alert. Asia's most powerful typhoon so far this year, Yagi brought heavy rain and strong winds and continued to wreak havoc as it moved westwards, leading to the collapse of a bridge on Monday. Kosovo announced the indictment of 45 suspects on terrorism charges on Wednesday, almost a year after some 80 ethnic Serb gunmen stormed a village in North Kosovo and battled police in a shootout, leaving 4 dead, including a Kosovar police officer. According to the Kosovo police, on September 24th last year, about 80 gunmen entered northern Kosovo from Serbia in armored vehicles and barricaded themselves in a Serbian Orthodox monastery in the village of Banska, before 3 gunmen and a Kosovar police officer were killed in the shootout that followed. Following the shootout, the rest of the ethnic Serb assailants fled to Serbia on foot through the woods, leaving behind vehicles loaded with weapons, ammunition and explosives. Kosovo prosecution said that a former top Kosovo Serb politician and the leader of the group, Milan Radojcic, is among the accused. Radojcic, who currently lives in Serbia, has previously publicly admitted to taking part in the gun battle. However, despite the indictment, the suspects, who are believed to be in Serbia, are unlikely to be handed over to Kosovar authorities, as Belgrade does not recognize Kosovo's independence. Wednesday marked 23 years since the September 11, 2001 terror attacks that killed 2,983 people when al-Qaeda hijackers crashed 4 jetliners into the World Trade Center in New York, the Pentagon, and a field in southwest Pennsylvania. At a commemorative event at Ground Zero, Manhattan, family members of the victims of the 9/11 attacks spoke in memory of the lives lost that day. Prominent figures, including President Joe Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Donald Trump, and his running mate, Senator J.D. Vance, were also in attendance. Kim Seong, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. Central parts of Korea have been seeing on and off heavy rain since early this morning, which will continue throughout the day, with heavy rain alerts being issued here in Seoul. And until Friday, central regions could see up to 80 millimeters. Southern provinces will see rain mainly tomorrow, with 5 to 40 millimeters in the forecast. So the rain gave heat relief to central areas, but heat wave alerts remain in place for most of southern regions, with temperatures staying in the 30s this afternoon. Now, Seoul saw the hottest September temperatures yesterday, but readings will go down about 7 degrees lower. Tomorrow will be similar to slightly hotter than today. And this afternoon, Seoul gets up to 27 degrees, still a scorcher, topping out at 33 degrees over on Jeju Island. Summer-like Chuseok holiday is expected this year. Meanwhile, as the holiday is right upon us, the roads were highly congested for the evening commute yesterday, and it should be like that for the rest of the week, so plan accordingly for your evening. That's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
That ends our Thursday afternoon newscast. Do stay with us for our panel session coming up next.